Evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel. It's your second podcast in 24 hours. Tonight, I'm joined by Mr. Alex Hurst of True Faith podcast and various other things. So, Alex, first of all, how are you doing, mate?
I'm all right, thanks, Kris. As good as can be in this crazy world in which we're living, in the world of Steve Bruce, which we're all just living in. But I'm all right, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm not bad. Surprisingly, mate. But I think you touched on this on the podcast which you did last week with the True Faith gang, is that it's no longer anger, which I'm feeling, and I'm probably in the same boat as you, mate, where anger has been replaced by apathy once again as a supporter of this football club. And even last night, when we'll get on the game a little bit later, but last night when we conceded, there's nothing there, mate. Nothing. It's a reaction where I just look at my phone and go, oh, yeah, we go again. Messages coming in. We've come to expect it now, haven't we, in regards to conceding goals and not really doing anything about it in retaliation.
No, I have. It's like even scoring last night, our first goal since 1999, pretty much, and I just didn't even, because you knew we were going to concede again, and even though we're having a decent spell, I was just like, you know what's coming. The thing about Newcastle is, at the minute, people say we don't have a style and we're not consistent. Well, I disagree. Yeah. We're entirely consistent at being shit. And we do have a style. It's let the opposition have as much of the ball as they want, let them have as many shots as they want, let them win the game. That is our style. We shouldn't pretend otherwise.
Yeah, no, you're right, mate. And like I said, last week, you guys summed it up perfectly. And I'll probably, last night for me, it was a little bit different because with Almiron scoring, I did celebrate the goal. And there's been times in the past where we've scored and I'm like, nah, like fair enough, it's a goal. But I think it's a fact that Almiron scored it, which I celebrated more for him than the club and the team equalising, to be honest with you, because out of all the players that deserve a decent run of games and getting on the score sheet, it's Almiron for me. I'm not sure if you agree with that one, mate.
No, huge fan of his, and what you saw last night wasn't played in his proper position. You know, go back to West Brom away last season in the cup, one of the few good nights we've had under Bruce. And I know it was against West Brom, but he played him behind Joe Linton in the middle of the pitch, and he ran riot. And he actually took him off, and we fell apart. And then since then, we've pretty much never seen him played there. And he never complains, does he? He's not one of these players who you hear talking to his agent or doing a Kieran Dyer. He must have played in 5 different positions for Steve Bruce, and then all of a sudden he plays in the right position and he runs the show. So I totally agree with you.
Well, it's not just Almiron, mate. We saw the return of St. Maximum, the saviour, as he became known on the training ground. We saw him make an appearance for a long time last night. And it's another player who's been tested in different positions. But last night, we see him on that left-hand side of the field, and we see that the sort of player that we've grown to love at this club. And I know just before Saint did get COVID, his performances weren't great after he signed that new contract. And like I said, Steve Bruce put a lot of hope on him being the saviour of Newcastle United once he was fit. And I think a lot of people forgot like how bad some of the performances were from Saint just obviously after he signed that contract. But once again, he was being played out of position during that period. But last night when he came on the field, it's probably one of the only positives which I could take from the game is the arrival of Saint and how much he drives that team forward.
You can tell he gives his teammates a lot of belief. As soon as he comes on the pitch, we're back to one-touch football. There's players making runs off him. It's just, I think the space that he creates by drawing defenders in helps the other players. Like I know he played left last night, but imagine who do you want on the left-hand side as a teammate? Him or Joe Linton? Like, exactly. Have a massive impact on the rest of the team, doesn't it?
No, you're right, mate. So to touch on the game itself, obviously you've covered this as well, but I don't want to go into too much detail on that one. But Steve Bruce is being called out quite a bit for the likes of in-game management, where there's nothing there, and the likes of it's always the opposition who make that first move to change things on the field, and it seems like Bruce makes that change to try and counteract that. He's not a forward thinking. He's not on the front foot a lot of the time with these changes. Do you think yesterday, obviously, second half, we did see, and I'm going to say a slight improvement, because as a football fan, this is what you expect to see. You expect the team to try and score goals. So I don't want to get carried away with that 25, 30 minutes, which we did see last night. Do you think the arrival and the return of Saint, that's basically player power on that one? And like you've just said there, as soon as he steps on the field, that gives everybody else a boost? Or do you think it's down to Steve Bruce's halftime team talk?
Well, he started the game. I mean, you mentioned in-game management there, and you're totally right that he has no in-game management, but he doesn't have any out-of-game management either, because we start games terribly. We're set up. I mean, I like looking at stats and patterns and stuff, and I've been tweeting this for ages now.
Yeah,
that it's now, we started that game very briefly with 5 at the back, and Isaac Hayden playing centre back and Jacob Murphy right full back. It's now 2 wins in 25 Premier League games playing that formation, which is just like, if you're just going to get relegated playing that in, it's hard to fathom. Like, even though we're not at games, turning on the telly and just saying, yeah, this again, we're going to get beat. So when we went 1-0 down, it changed pretty quick, because it had to go back to a back 4, Isaac Hayden at right back, and it got much better. But it's like, you're right. I'm almost giving him credit for not hamstringing the team. Like, it's hard to give a manager credit for not making us absolutely terrible, which is what he did. Yeah. We lost the game at the end of the day, and I did a quick video after the game, and with a big club like Leeds, you always get a few Leeds fans in the comments and stuff like that saying, "Oh, Leeds aren't a bad side. You're saying like we should have won the game," and I'm like, "Oh, Leeds are a great side. I love watching Leeds." However, if you're a bottom half team threatening relegation and you cannot beat the team who've got one of the worst defensive away records in the league, who are you going to beat? And so I'm just loath to do it. Maybe I'm too anti-Bruce, but I'm loath to give him any credit at all for a marginal improvement. And Leeds were so open. Like, how could you not attack them? How could you not? But you look at someone like Callum Wilson, who we know is a fantastic. I've heard you praise him plenty as well. At the start of the season, we know he's a fantastic player. What did we create from last night? Even in this like good run, I'm just so loath to give Bruce any credit. He doesn't deserve credit. He's lost another game by his setup at the start of it. So I don't know if I'm being negative, mate, but that's just how I feel.
No, I think probably, even personally speaking, maybe last night I did get a little bit carried away, because that performance in the second half is far from what we're used to in regards to forward thinking and trying to score goals, and it just shows you how much, as a fan myself, I'm happy with that performance, and I'm like ecstatic that we'll try to score a goal. But it's just because it's been so drained into you that Bruce has said that basically the team aren't good enough, the players aren't good enough, and the team can't create chances and they can't score goals. So what we've got to do first is defend our goal, and that's a priority. Last night in that second half, yesterday, just proves that Steve Bruce has been talking out of his arse, because the players can do it. Exactly what we've been saying from the start of the season, exactly what we said last season. He does have the players there, and he does have fast players, pacey players, and he's got skillful players. He's, like you just said, he's got Callum Wilson there, and Callum Wilson is probably regretting coming to this football club, because he wouldn't have thought he would have been playing up top by himself and getting one shot on target a game, if that. And there's no chances created, and that's the most frustrating thing. Not just from a fan, but player wise, you can see by looking at the players, and we saw after the Arsenal game, where the players looked like they had been relegated. They were absolutely defeated. And it just shows you massively, as in regards to a club and those players on the field, that apathy is spreading everywhere. And it's not just ourselves and fans, it's on the field as well.
And how are the players supposed to trust Steve Bruce? Steve Bruce talks about, well, I've never had my best team. What is your best team, Steve? Because 3 games ago, Sean Longstaff was in your best team. Now he can't get in the squad. You brought Matty Longstaff back in from the cold and DeAndre Edlin back in the cold. Now they can't get in the team. Like, what is your best team? Do you know what your best team is, Steve? Because I don't think you know what your best team is. So it's a load of bullshit, isn't it? It's a man who gets a camera stuck in front of him after every game, and he just says the first thing that comes into his head, and I'm sick of it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what his best team is, and you're spot on by saying they expect St. Maximin to come in and like pull out the shit. What if he doesn't? What if he gets in it again? What if he has a bad game on Saturday against Everton? By leaving yourself in such a precarious position, it puts too much pressure on certain players, and that's what we're seeing.
We mentioned on our podcast a couple of weeks ago when Saint had started training again that Steve Bruce was putting too much pressure on his shoulders. All the press conference would be missing Saint. You'll be back soon enough. And there was a lot of pressure. And this is from a player who picked up an injury, another muscle injury under Steve Bruce. So chances are, he hasn't had much game time. Chances are, and I hate to say it, that it'll probably happen again in regards to an injury where he'll miss 2 or 3 games in a row before he's recovered from that. So to pin all your hopes, like you just said, on one single player, it is unbelievably frustrating, not just for ourselves, but those players on the field, because we saw how much they improved when he stepped foot on the field. What's their attitude going to be like when he's not in the team and when he's not even an option from the bench? Are they going to be walking into games similar to what Steve Bruce says? And he's like, well, it's a great team that we're up against. We've got to defend our goal first of all. Is that rubbing off on the players to the fact where they mentally think now that we're not good enough without seeing in the team?
It's got to, doesn't it? Because you think back to when Rafa Benitez was here, all he would talk about in press conferences, particularly when it was going badly, was confidence, like you just said. He would talk about it relentlessly, and Steve Bruce is talking about confidence. It's like, how are they supposed to take any confidence from you, Steve, when you say they're shite, when you say that we've got hand grenade performances? Like, if I'm a player, if I'm like Fede Fernandez, who is part of a leaky defence, but he gives everything. He's there. He's last-ditch tackles, hoying his head in. And then you're accused of hoying a hand grenade performance. And if I was him, I'd be thinking, well, hang on, I'm doing my job. If I was Isaac Hayden, I'd be like, well, I'm playing centre-back and right-back. And that would be position. I'm doing my job, Steve. You're not doing your job. I don't think the players are playing from. I think it's gone. I think you're right. Second half was better last night, but I thought that was a player's reaction rather than a Bruce reaction, like I said. And I think he doesn't have any legitimacy because he will lose all the games. So if he comes into market training with a new idea, which I doubt, by the way, but if he comes in saying, right, I've got a solution, why would you listen to him as a player? We've taken 21 points from the last 26 Premier League games dating back to last season. Why would you listen to him?
Well, that was our first goal, if I remember right. It's our first goal from open play since last time we played Leeds. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's spot on, yeah.
It's ridiculous, isn't it, when you think about it? From open play. And I know Callum Wilson has got out with the shit. He scored a couple of penalties this season. Dubious penalties, I would say. The one against Spurs, especially. Without those results, we would probably be in that relegation zone. Of course, Fulham have got a game in hand. They might have 2 games in hand, I'm not sure. But it does look like we're dropping into that relegation zone in the next few weeks. What are your thoughts on that one, mate?
No, definitely. I mean, we've got Palace, we've got Everton and Palace, then Southampton. You'd say Palace are in free fall as well. They're really struggling. But Everton and Southampton are just better than us. And it's like Leeds last night. They come in 12th in the league. No wins in 3, no goals in 3. Easy. Leeds should have won by more last night. The Leeds' problem is they don't put their chances away. But they had so many chances last night that they could have won by more. The goals were so soft we conceded.
That second one, mate. That second one. The first one was bad, but the second one.
The second one, he's completely free because Isaac Hayden's playing a right back and he's tucked in. We've got 2 right backs on the bench. You know what I mean? It's like, I get myself frustrated because there's so little logic to it that even me and you and people watching as supporters, we can think, well, if you play a centre midfielder at right back, we're probably going to concede a goal in the right back position. What happens? And I think we're getting relegated. I think how are we going to win a game? Who are we going to beat? Maybe Maximan comes in. Maybe Martin Dubravka comes back in the team, or Cardona pulls off 4 or 5 ridiculous saves and they hit the bar and then we're negative 1-0. Maybe that happens at Everton. But then what happens the next week and the week after that? It's not sustainable. And that's what Newcastle fans have been saying since the start of last season. This isn't sustainable. Like when we went to Sheffield United, I don't know if you were down there that night last season.
Was that the Shelby goal?
Yes.
I was, mate. Yeah, I was. Me and Decker were the ones making all the noise on the boards on the left-hand side all game. That was me and Decker.
Well, what a great night, wasn't it? It was a fantastic night. It's why we're good. It's why we do this ridiculous thing that we do following this football club. But we all knew that, it was supposed to get better from there. That was supposed to be, all right, we've got away with one tonight, but it's supposed to be better. The longer you're on the training pitch, the better players you buy. But actually, that was the baseline, and we've gone down from there. And that's the most dominant thing about Bruce is every week on the training pitch with Steve Bruce, in my opinion, the players are getting worse, not better.
Yeah. And to be honest, mate, that game against Sheffield United, we weren't very good. Sheffield United, they dominated a lot of the possession and they did create a lot of chances. And if I remember right, the keeper pulled off a fair few decent saves to keep us in that game. But it was another one where result looks better than the performance. Something which we're absolutely desperate for right now. We're desperate to get some 3 points on the table. But do you think if we do pick up another, let's say we'll go into that game against Everton at the weekend and we get 3 points, Do you think that basically says to the club, right, Bruce is our man till the end of the season? Or do you think that no matter what happens right now, that Bruce has got this title until the end of the season now?
I don't think he's got it till the end of the season regardless, because if we were to lose the next 3 games and then it's no wins in 14 or 15 games in all competitions, even Mike Ashley and Lee Charnley, they know they can't put up with it. You kind of keep losing games at this level in the Premier League. The more games you lose and the worse we get, the harder it is for a new manager to turn it around quickly. And you saw that with Rafa Benitez.
We did, yeah.
Who, by the last 5 games of his tenure, were superb. But if he'd been let in a couple of games earlier and able to reverse the damage quicker, we might have beat, but would have been all right. And I think if we win on Saturday, he's got maybe another 5 games to lose before they bin him, because he's who knows what happens in Fulham's games and all that. But he's still got that gap to the relegation zone, which is why he's still in the job. But you kind of keep losing games in the Premier League. The players would have him out. They would if we lose the next 4 games. The players would be going to Lee Charnley saying, "We need a change here. We're not going to win another game this season."
Well, I would be worried now if the players haven't already done that, if I'm being honest with you. I would be slightly worried if the players haven't looked around and thought, a little bit concerned with this one. We're not changing the way that we're playing, and that a lot of the attacking players have been left on the bench. And like you just said, we've got 2 right backs. Last night, we should have had 3 right backs, but because the club couldn't sort of visa, it left with 2 right backs out on the bench. What are they thinking? Looking at that field and thinking, why is a centre defensive midfielder getting played at centre back, and why is it a right winger getting played as a right back when I'm a right back by my role is to play in that position? Why am I not getting chosen? What's going through their heads at that point?
Well, they want to leave, don't they? I mean, Kraft supposedly wants to be away. I don't blame him. I don't rate him. I don't think he's good enough. But like you've just correctly said there, what are they thinking? What's it like for team morale when they see the team sheet? What do they think? Like, how are they supposed to get back in the team? Everyone who plays badly pretty much. So there's no kind of keep your place because you played well. But it goes across the board. What did Jeff Hendrick do? What's Jeff Hendrick done recently in central midfield that's better than Matty Longstaff? Yet he's being started. Doesn't make any sense. It's just it's getting beat, and it's hiring a load of names at the team sheet, hoping for a reaction, hoping that some sort of combination will come good. There's no like tactical nous or thought behind from the manager or the coaching staff. It's pure hit and hope.
We said last night the whole thing with Jeff Hendrick was yesterday. Once again, he looked absolutely shocking. He hardly touched the ball, hardly involved in anything. But when we did start playing better in the second half of that 20, I keep saying this, I'm saying the second half was about 20 minutes. He dropped into more of a defensive role, and he looked like he sat in front of the defenders, and he did start playing better. And I think even the commentators mentioned that he started playing better. But it just proves how wrong Bruce was to start playing on the right-hand side of midfield at the start of the season. Like, what's that about? And it just, I think Bruce is probably his own worst enemy at times, because he says these things and he plays players in these positions. Then the fans will sit there and say, well, you're wrong to do that. You're wrong to do that. Then 10 games later, it reverts back to where the players should be playing, and we're proven correctly. We're proven to be right. And do you think it's a case where he's just too stubborn to say, right, I got this wrong, and we'll start again?
I think it's worse than that. That would be bad, but what we're seeing is what we've seen across his career. That's the issue. You know, on the True Faith website at the minute, we've had some of the lads who've got mates. One lad's a Sunderland fan, another lad's a Birmingham fan, another lad's Aston Villa fan, and they've written about Bruce at the time at their club, and they all say the same thing. He's capable of building a decent squad. He can work with chairman trust him for whatever reason, gets a few quid out of them, buys some decent players. But in terms of how he uses those players and where he plays them, square pegs, round holes. And I think it's more to do with, I signed Jeff Hendrick, Steve Bruce signed Jeff Hendrick, he's going to play. It doesn't matter whether I've got to accommodate him or play him. Here's the ridiculous thing, Christian Atsu, right? I know he's not everyone's favourite player, but Jesus Christ, he's a better right winger than Jeff Hendrick. Like
100%.
And a better left winger than Joe Linton. It's this weird kind of, you put it there, is he too stubborn? It's almost like I don't know if he's stubborn, but he can't even see there's a problem. So if you don't know if there's a problem, you can't find a solution.
Yeah, you're probably right. What I'm going to do, mate, I'm going to open this out to everybody else. So if people do want to send in some questions, we're happy to answer as many as possible. We'll still go for a little bit longer. What I want to touch on there is, I've mentioned obviously Bruce lasts until the end of the season. Do you think the arrival of Graham Jones, that club announced like he was some sort of new number 9, do you think that is telling that if Bruce does get sacked, you know who's going to be caretaker manager till the end of the season?
I think so. You're right, by the way. I mean, there was, and I don't mean this to be harsh, because I'm all for the club doing more stuff like that and being more transparent, and fair play to the lads. It was really interesting, actually, the way Jones spoke, and they did a good job. So I'm not criticising them for this, but it's just funny how there's almost like a professional photo shoot where he's got his arms folded and he's looking down the camera in a sharp suit, and like, this is a new coach. Like, does any other club do this for the arrival of a new coach?
You wouldn't mind if that was a constant at the club, where we were getting these sort of interviews with the coaches, with management, with people behind the scenes. Because as a fan, I would love to see what happens behind the scenes at the football club. But obviously, the arrival in a transfer window of a coach, it was mind-boggling, mate. Like, I saw that day, and you're right. He came across really, really well in the interview. He sounded very knowledgeable about the club. He spoke about how he had a season ticket when he was younger. He was there for Keegan's game and so on. He did seem very clued up, and obviously he's followed Roberto Martinez most of his career. He's been at Wigan, Everton, where else?
Belgium.
Yeah, he went to Belgium, worked alongside Thierry Henry as a coach as well. His managerial career didn't last too long at Luton, but I think we said this when Steve McLaren arrived, didn't we? That he came with a reputation of being a great head coach, but managerial-wise, he wasn't very good at it, and we were proven right once again on that one. Do you think his arrival, that the club have basically brought somebody in to hold Bruce's hand and saying maybe he can come up with a few more ideas? This is to help you out a little bit, Steve. That sort of thing. But do you think that Bruce has been involved from the start of bringing another coach in? Because he's already got about 4 Steves.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? It depends who you read and believe. And there was lots on Twitter today about is it been almost done to force him out the door? Has it been forced on him? Has he gone and said, "I need this bloke from Bournemouth"? I can't see it myself. I can't see Steve Bruce saying, "Go to Bournemouth and get us Graham Jones." I can't see it. So I think he would get the job. I still think deep down that the owner still hopes and thinks that the club by the end of the season won't be his problem.
Yeah.
And at the minute, because we're losing so much money, like every Premier League club is, he doesn't want to spend any of his own money to put into the club to get a proper manager in. And then if you get them in and you don't want to put them on a short-term contract, you've got to pay them like 3 or 4 million quid if they keep you up. And I agree with you that he's been brought in to almost just replace him. And again, it's a hugely risky move.
Yeah, you're right. Especially because what you do normally see when a manager is sacked and is replaced, you do normally see some sort of reaction from the players, and you do normally get a couple of results under that. By bringing a coach in, I can't really see that having much of an impact, if I'm being honest with you. And even if Bruce was to be sacked, let's say in 4 games' time, the player would already been used to having this face around the ground and around the training pitches. So I'm not sure it would have that much of an impact as what a full new coach and a full new setup would bring into the team.
I agree, but there's one caveat from 2006, and that's when Graham Souness was sacked and Rhoda was already coaching at the club.
Yeah.
I think Souness was so bad, and I think Bruce is so bad that just them not being there has a massive positive impact. And you sort of think
like a weight off the shoulder sort of thing.
Yeah, did Rhoda win 10 of his 15 games in that season in the Premier League, which was unbelievable. Some fantastic days. I was 18 at the time, so like great days in your life following Newcastle under Glenn Rhoda. That didn't work out the next season, sadly. But
was Houghton not a coach as well? Or I just made that up?
No,
he got the gig.
Houghton was Kevin Keegan brought Houghton in second time, so and that one worked out as well. So
I'm just talking shit then. You're right. What you're saying though, obviously those 2 references that you've just gone back to there, Rhoda and Houghton, it did work. If I'm being honest with you, I don't know much about them. I have been looking at social media posts today from the likes of Bournemouth fans and things like that, just to see what their sort of reaction was. And there's good and bad, which you'll get from most. Obviously, a lot of fans are screenshot the bad ones, saying, "Oh God, Bournemouth fans are going to be losing this kid." when they're slating him. You could look at that in any way. You can find the positives from it. I'm all for bringing a new face into this setup and trying to change things, because things do need to be changed. That's obvious. It's blindly obvious that things need to change, and hopefully he can have an impact. And if people haven't seen the interview with him, I fully recommend going and watching it, because he basically says that I'm not scared to be honest and to be outspoken, and I'll happily tell Steve Bruce if I think this should happen. And he had, I'm not sure if this is a dig, mate, but he says that he's looked at previous games and some of the best players were on the bench. He did get in there. I'm not sure if that was a little bit of a dig or what, but he's right. Some of our best players have been on the bench. It's crazy to see.
I agree with you. It's weird. The whole thing's weird. The interview was good, but weird. It's like it just seems to be like almost a managerial unveiling today. But Bruce has got. He
spoke like a manager. He spoke like a manager. I'll say that much.
I was actually, my last game before lockdown, I was actually at the Glamour tie, which was Wigan Luton at the DW, because my mate's a Luton fan and he needed someone to go to an away game with, and I wasn't going to go to Southampton the day we beat them. And even though Luton were in a lot of trouble, he was popular with the fans. And to be fair to Luton that day, Wigan were flying. And it was 0-0 draw, but they were just so organised, Luton. And I know they were struggling, but they were, for a team down the bottom, they were organised. He clearly made them hard to beat, and that's the opposite of what we are, isn't the minute. So if you could do the same, and then like you say with the return of some Maximan and some of the quality players we've got, if you make us hard to beat, we've got the quality that we should pick up points.
No, you're completely right, mate. I'm going to go through some of the questions, see if there's anything which has been sent in. There's a few about the takeover. I'll briefly touch on the takeover, because it's something which there's so much talk about the takeover when there's not many people that know what's happening with the takeover, which frustrates me a hell of a lot, mate. So I'm not going to sit here and say I know what's happening behind the scenes, because I haven't got a clue. I don't have an absolute ounce of knowledge in regards to what's happening with the takeover. I only know what everybody else is saying, or obviously being led to believe. What I will say on it, though, is I've always been optimistic that there is something there in the background, and I'm always hopeful that the likes of Amanda Staveley won't give up on trying to get people together to buy this club. I think we've seen that in the past, where, what was it, on the second time now, maybe in the third time, we should tried to get some sort of consortium together to buy this club. So I think even if the likes of the Saudis and PIF do pull out of a deal and they don't want to return at the table, is that Staveley will continue to try and source the funds on that one to bring a new buyer and get rid of Mike Ashley. I believe that, and that's just a personal opinion. I don't have any knowledge in that one. But over to you, mate. What's your opinion on it?
My opinion is, I'm the same as you. I only read stuff and speak to people, and I don't have any inside track at all. My opinion is, as much as I want it to happen, I'm more concerned about what's happening right now at the football club. Like, I'm really, really worried about. I honestly never thought. We've seen some bad times at Newcastle in the Mike Ashley era. I don't think I've ever seen the club as directionless, as loathed by the fans. Like, do you know anyone who looks forward to the match? We're playing Leeds. And I know we're not at the match, so it's difficult. We're playing Leeds at home last night. Yeah. And people will be rushing home from work. People will be making arrangements to watch that match. Half the people I know don't watch it anymore, and that's like damning. So I worry about now, and I know the takeover is like the carrot at the end of it. Yeah, I agree with you that the natural belief is, like, if you've got some blokes there with 350 million quid from Saudi Arabia, you've got a bloke who wants to sell something to them. Surely between them and their legal teams, they should be able to get something sorted out. Yeah, I noticed the Athletic, George Carlton and Kris. Well, I didn't notice. I read it, and they interviewed me for it. They did a piece which is illuminating for me, basically saying that this legal work between Ashley and the Premier League, it's not like taking the Premier League to court to say, well, you owe us 300 million quid or anything. It's them doing that arbitration, which PIF. So when PIF walked away in the summer, the Premier League said, right, we think that we need to know who's going to own the football club. We don't think you've put forward people on the owners and directors test who have ultimate control, because they're basically saying the king of Saudi Arabia or whatever would have ultimate control as the owner of the PIF. Saudi Arabia went, no, you're wrong. Premier League said, well, okay, let's go to 3 independent judges and let them decide who's right and who's wrong. That's when the Saudis walked away. What this legal action is apparently doing, so I read, is actually going through that process. That to me makes me far more confident of it happening than just taking the Premier League to court to kick off at them or get money from them, because that wouldn't ultimately give what we want, which is the sale of the club. So, you know, if there's very good lawyers working on this, which there seems to be, if there's very capable people, hopefully we can get the resolution that we want and start looking forward, not looking back.
Yeah, so Darryl there said that he's read the piece in the Athletic. It's brilliant. It is great to see. And what I want to tip me hat at this one is that George Colgan has stayed quiet over the last few months. He hasn't just been pushing articles out for the sake of it. He doesn't have to do that. So George has sat there, bided his time, and got and collected as much information as possible. Like you said, he interviewed you for that one, who did have contact with Amanda Staveley on that one. So I appreciate, obviously, he doesn't have to do it now that he's working for the Athletic. He doesn't have to put articles out just to get clickbait, is what people like to call it. And George is a fantastic writer, and it's great to see him finally putting something out, him and Kris, in relation to the likes of the takeover, and giving us a tiny bit of an update. I know it wasn't massive, but it's a tiny bit of an update, mate. And coming from those sort of people who personally I trust as local journalists, who do have the best interests for the likes of fans, it's nothing about gaining followers or anything like that. It's just a case where they want to stand by fans and be good to the fan base, and that's all that is with those two lads.
No, it is. Yeah, I really like them both. I count them both as friends, and I think, like you say, it's much better, isn't it, getting that one big read full of good direction and full of proper facts than getting kind of little bits of information. But I think a lot of the fan base would love little bits of information, so each to their own, really. But yeah, we didn't plan to make this into a subscribe to the Athletic, but if you haven't already,
quid.
Yeah.
I think it's a quid at the moment. I'm not sure if they've still got that offer on. It's like the trust, just a quid, just the same hashtag that we can use for both. Right, coming in from Belly 81. I used to go to the games. If I couldn't go, I'd watch them on the TV. But over the last few seasons, I'm not bothered. All I do now is buy the shirts for me and the wife and the kids. I think he probably speaks for a lot of people. Me personally, what I miss about match day is the social aspect of it, and that's what it's been for a number of years now. Catching up with friends, having a few pints with the lads before and after the match, and going to the game always seemed like a bit of a chore. Having obviously sat in the pub 10 to 3, then finishing that pint off and thinking, oh, do I have to go into the game? Like, and that's what I miss. I miss the interaction, basically. And I'm not sure if you agree on that one, but for me, it's always been the social aspect. I would say probably the last couple of years, well, 3, 4 year, 5 year, it's gone on and on.
Yeah, I think everyone's different, and I think lockdown's made it harder. You miss those things more, like you were talking about, don't you? And that, it's like the match to me now is much more appealing than it was before lockdown, because we don't have those things. I think the 3 seasons on the RAF, the full 3 seasons, are the most engaged I've ever felt, to be honest with you. I don't know, we're a similar age, and I was too young really for the Bobby Robson era. I did get to a couple of games of it. Alex could take me. But since then, I really felt engaged with the club. You know, we started Gallowgate Flags. There was the singing section. I don't know if you ever got up there, Kris, and Block V. But that was just, that felt a little bit special. It felt a little bit like it was our club again. And it was lots of people who wanted the same thing. Whereas, like you say, compare that to the season under Bruce, when the singing section disbanded, War Flags stopped doing what they were doing. It just felt like a different football club, and then it's continued going in that vein even despite lockdown.
What I want to ask you, you've mentioned there, obviously the singing section slowly started disappearing. A lot of people moved back to the corner, if I remember right, and there around that. Then obviously War Flags, which they're now known as, decided to stop making flags and displays. Do you think that was solely down to the fact that Rafa left, or do you think it's partly down to the fact that Bruce was appointed as well?
If I remember correctly, it's because Rafa left. I know a couple of the lads have been on your show before, Thomas, who was on the trust board, is still
Yeah.
integral to it. So yeah, I think it was because Rafa left, and I have first experience of how much hard work goes into that, and if you feel like you're putting all the work in, which they were, and then the club aren't putting the same kind of effort into Newcastle United as fans who do stuff for now, then I can understand why you wouldn't want to continue with that. And I think pretty much the whole fan base recognised that and understood that, and it was the beginning of the end, really, wasn't it? When Rafa left, it's just been rubbish ever since. I hate it.
Well, like you've said there, Gallagher flags, war flags, the singing section, they made the club look more attractive. And you're right in what you're saying. By the club not giving back, then why should the effort go in? If the club aren't putting the effort there, why should the fans put the effort in to make this club more attractive to the likes of to anyone, players, potential fans across the world? Because obviously the displays were getting shown worldwide, because some of the displays were absolutely fantastic. I remember the first one for, like, obviously you would have been heavily involved in that one. It was great to see, but then after the first one, it was just a learning curve where it was more flags, then even more. Then you get to the point where there's like the Almiron display, the Rafa displays, the Chronicle ones with the headlines that they looked absolutely fantastic, and it just went from strength to strength. And obviously the massive surfer flag, which lads drove over Poland for, I think it was. It just seemed like it all came crashing down, and that's once again, it's down to the club, and it's the club just treating fans with disregard. They were the reason why all that stopped.
Yeah, and it's funny. I'll tell you a little story. So when I was chair of the trust, I'm not anymore, meeting with Lee Charnley, you walk into the boardroom at Newcastle. So like Graham Jones today, that photo shoot was in the boardroom. And whenever a player signs in the boardroom in the club, I don't know whether they've done it out recently, but that floor is really nice for St James's Park, Newcastle. They've purely put a bit of effort in, and it's like a nice part of the ground. Yeah. And as you walk along in the boardroom, it's all pictures of those flag displays. Really, it was a surreal moment for me, seeing those pictures, which I put so much effort and time and work into. Not just me, like loads of other people, plus probably people watching who paid for them and donated for them, either through the quiz nights were held or just donated, like thousands of people did. And I was just like, I'm really proud of this, but then also there's like sadness that all we did was make the boardroom look nice, whereas actually on the pitch, the displays aren't happening anymore because the people who run the club, seemingly to a lot of fans, don't care about it like we do. And it was a weird moment where I'm like, wow, that they're using our as fans, but also like the displays that some of them came out my head, and all my friends or the people who did the displays and put lots of graft and effort in. I don't like going out flags all night, but even people who work at the club, I remember championship season, we did the first display against Huddersfield, and then we had Reading at home 3 days later. So we got beat off Huddersfield 2-1, and then we had Reading at home straight away. And we'd put all the flags in like the Gallowgate box office, but they needed to be in for the match. And like one of the key club staff, me and him, spent a whole afternoon just shifting flags about, and they didn't have to do that. So it's not just fans who've been let down; it's people who work from the club who put the graft in as well. So and it does make you think how you could have something so special as a football club, and just let it go so easily like they did.
And for that to be fan led, mate, it was remarkable when you think about it. The achievements that are made, obviously you started from scratch there, but the achievements and the displays were absolutely fantastic. And to think when you step back and thinking, we did that, like fans did that, and the money raised by fans, solely fans donating money, it's just, I'll say it again, it's the best way to describe it. It's absolutely remarkable to see that. And as a fan base, we'll get criticised loads because we say we demand this, we demand that. Then people say, oh, like online Newcastle United fans don't get on with each other. There's fractions between the fan base all the time. But when we put our heads together, we can achieve so much more than what a lot of other clubs could do. As a fan base, I think we get disrespected quite a lot because people and pundits are stuck in that mind frame of thinking Newcastle fans think they should be playing the Champions League, because we love those Champions League days, but we know as fans that those aren't coming back anytime soon, and we're not expecting them to come back anytime soon. What we want is basically the bare minimum. We want to see a couple of goals. We want to see, in fact, I'll take a couple of shots on target these days. Never mind goals. But as a fan base, we'll touch on that, mate. And you've seen it firsthand, being just involved in a lot of things, and a lot of things outside of just solely being a Newcastle United support and somebody that attends the games. Obviously, with, like I said, War Flags of Trust, and obviously podcast and things like that. And fanzine, True Faith will be what, the longest running fanzine now?
It's the only one left, sadly. I wish it wasn't so, and I really hope a couple of others either come back or some new ones come, because there's always been a really strong fanzine culture at Newcastle. In the 90s, there was 6 or 7 on the go, and that's kind of, all the things you mentioned there. I love football fans. I think football exists for fans. It wouldn't exist if it wasn't for football fans. Being part of the atmosphere, being part of the games. And I'm a really big fan of stuff like this, like you're doing, like fan-led media. We're lucky at Newcastle that we have an excellent set of local journalists who cover the club and who care about the club. It's not like that across the country. But also, I think we've got a really good, vibrant fan community that just has a passion for talking about football. I mean, look at you guys. There's loads of other people, I could mention them all.
Yeah, there's about 5 or 6 off the top of my head that are doing a similar sort of thing to what we do.
And it's all because they love Newcastle United, and Newcastle are shit, and they've been shit for years. And this, you're right, this kind of delusional tag, or the idea that we demand more than we deserve. Well, actually, I'd rather be in our camp demanding more than we deserve, allegedly, than just accepting this shite we're dealt with. Because if you're the kind of fan base that would accept what we're watching at the minute, and I think there is a fan base down the road who accepted stuff like this for years, where are they now? Where are they now? Because beating Newcastle was the only thing that mattered. Doesn't matter if they finished 16th, 17th. Doesn't matter if they lost 25 games a season, as long as they beat Newcastle. Well, actually, we're a bit different. We expect better from our football club, or for them to at least match our passion and ambition for it. And the conversation we've just had now demonstrates that actually the passion and the vision for Newcastle United is only coming from one side here, and it's not the football club.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of this sort of stuff, mate. I love it. I even watch other clubs, things where it's fan-led, like some podcasts and media on YouTube and podcasts and things like that. I've got no connection to these clubs. I really don't have. But to see some of the things which they put out is fantastic, just as a fan base. And Alex has disappeared. Oh, he's back. I thought you were bored of us there, mate. It's great to see. And I just wish the likes of the pundits and the media, rather than spouting this shite, basically, they would tune in just to 10 minutes of one of these sort of things by any Newcastle United fan channel, and they'll see the exact same message being portrayed and being mentioned, because we don't demand a great lot. We don't anymore. It's been a long time since we had done that. So I just wish they would take a step back and thinking, I'll just go and listen to this, just to get a little bit of knowledge, get a bit of a fan opinion on it, rather than just going on it and just speaking crap and what I think when it's not true. It's not true, and it really annoys us. It really is. I'm going to go off on a tangent. Yeah, I'm going to start kicking off in a minute. There's been a couple of questions, so we'll go this one from Alan. It says, do you think Bruce would still be there if fans were in the stadium? I think everybody knows the answer to that one, but we'll talk about it a little bit, mate. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think same as you. No, he wouldn't. If you look back at the last manager Newcastle sacked, Steve McLaren, it pretty much wasn't the club that sacked him, it was the fans, because it was so poisonous in that stadium against Bournemouth. You're getting sacked in the morning, you don't know what you're doing, that it becomes impossible to manage. It becomes impossible to take training with the players when the players know that the fans are doing that. So no, I wouldn't be here. The fans would have seen the back of him now. Yeah,
people always mention that Alan Pardew, when it was against Palace, was it Crystal Palace? Where
Cardiff. Was it Cardiff?
Was it Cardiff? Was one of the way he couldn't even get out of his seat.
Yeah, it was Cardiff, fine.
Couldn't get out of his seat. Then even John Carver, when John Carver was getting out of his seat, he was getting booed as well. Anyone associated with Pardew, it was toxic in St James's Park that day. It was really, really loud, and it was a little bit, I don't want to say awkward, but even me sitting there, I was thinking, ooh, like, this doesn't look good. Like, he has to go. Of course, he didn't get sacked in the end. Well, actually got money for Alan Pardew.
Well, I think it was what helped him was it was last game of the season. I think there'd been more games after that, he would have had to go. But because it was the last game of the season, it meant they did sign some players that summer and spent some money for the first time in ages. So people kind of reset a little bit.
You're right, it was Cardiff. Is that not the one where Stephen Taylor celebrated the goal after he had just relegated Cardiff? And he ran around the field. I'm sure he ran around the field. I'm sure Taylor scored the last goal and he ran around the field as if like we just won the World Cup.
Yes.
But really, we just relegated Cardiff.
Ollie Gunnar in charge. Now he's top of the Premier League.
But yeah, I'm with you, mate. I think Bruce has taken advantage of the fact that there isn't fans in the ground, and some of the comments which we've seen recently in the likes of the press. I don't like to hear it. I really don't like to hear it. That little dig that he had at Rafa Benitez last week was uncalled for. Absolutely uncalled for. Because as a manager of this football club right now, you know how much as a fan base we appreciated Rafa Benitez. And I bet you there's people that work at the club that love Rafa to bits. So for Steve Bruce to have a little dig saying, the mighty Rafa or whatever he said, that's an insult to the fans. That's basically him sticking his fingers up at us. And I'm not sure if I've misread that, but that's my thoughts on it.
It's just needless. Do you know what I mean? You think about how you conduct yourself in a professional environment, and he doesn't have to do that. Like, if he doesn't say that, what's the worst that'll happen? So I just think it's deflection, isn't it? It's you can't answer the questions. I think it was Craig Hope who would put to him in that press conference supposedly, what would be a good finish or where can we finish, and because Bruce should be able to say, well, with the squad we've got, we should be pushing for the top 10. We should be up there. We should be in the conversation. But he can't say that because he's not capable of delivering that. So instead, he just has to, if he has a dig at Rafa, it makes the question go away, and everyone talks about that. But you're right. It's really disappointing that he has tried so little to get the fans on side. It's almost like he's accepted that he would never be liked, and rather than produce a team that was capable, or try and communicate with fans through a variety of means, including coming on shows like this. And I'm sure, like you provide him with the opportunity. He's just turned to insults, and it says a lot about him.
It works both ways, to be honest with you. We have seen the pros and cons of that one from the likes of the likes of a management or coaching staff attending podcasts. We saw it down the road at Sunderland, which they start off going on the likes of the Sunderland podcast, the popular podcast, and it worked well to start with. But as soon as things go downhill, then of course it doesn't end well. But of course, Pardew and Carver done an interview for Total Sport, I think it was, and they came across really well on that one. Just answering fans' questions and things like that. It's something which Bruce has never done, if I remember correctly. He hasn't been on the likes of a local radio station or anything like that. And I know people turn around and say, oh, well, it's because of the whole situation across the world with coronavirus and stuff like that. But it's not the case. Look at us right now, mate. We're sat in two different rooms across the northeast. God knows how many miles apart. Across a river. It can be done. He could have spoken to the fans months ago. It doesn't have to be now. It could have been months ago, and just explain what his plans were and things like that. And it's something which we never had from Bruce.
No, it comes across like he thinks he doesn't have to justify it, and that's when it becomes a bit offensive, doesn't it? And it's like, we're shit, but you don't understand. I don't have to give you an explanation. And it's like when he's coming out after Arsenal away and after Man City away, when you haven't had a shot and you've been beaten 2 and 3-0 positives. It's like, if you're going to say stuff like that, you need to make an effort to explain them, or you just get what you've got, which is, I've probably never known a manager as loathed as he is right now, maybe Souness, and Pardew, like you say, had his moments, but I don't know a single fan who wants him to remain in charge of this football club.
Yeah, and you go back to the appointment, mate. There wasn't, I can't think of a single fan that wanted to see Bruce at this football club. He's so far down the list to be appointed. The amount of people that turning the job down just shows a lot in regards to the likes of the owner. And of course, it always goes back to the owner. It does. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm not saying it's all Steve Bruce's fault, but Steve Bruce has got to take accountability for what is happening on the field. Mike Ashley isn't in charge of that. Steve Bruce is the one leaving players on the bench, putting players out of position, and defending goal rather than attacking a goal. In the Premier League, in any league, you've got to score goals. You've got to get points. If you don't get points, you get relegated. And right now, what is it? 2 points in the last 27? Did you say available 27? It looks like we're dropping. We're plummeting. We're not dropping. We're falling like a lead balloon.
Oh, we're going to get relegated. There's no doubt in my mind. It's just we are going to get relegated. There isn't some magical training session out there. There isn't some new coach that can come in that can make this team not terrible. This is us. It's like we've seen, what's he been here, 60 league games or something, 70 games in total. It's a lot of time in the Premier League. A lot of managers don't get that. Frank Lampard didn't get that. Like, a lot of managers don't get the kind of time he has been afforded. But what he has shown where the longer we've gone in is how unsuited he is to the job. So why would that change? This is the thing about, can he get us out of it? Well, why give me a single reason we're going to get any better apart from the return of St. Maximin? But St. Maximin's not going to make us defend any better.
No, far from it. Far from it, mate. I'll wrap this one up. I just want to say thanks for joining me tonight, mate. I've enjoyed this one. It's good to speak to other people rather than the people that we normally have in the normal residents of the YouTube channel. Just to obviously hear different opinions, because a lot of the time we just say the same thing. Of course, we'd disagree with each other, but it's great to hear an opinion from somebody else, from the likes of another podcast. But before we go, mate, where can people find the likes of the True Faith podcast, and where can they buy the fanzine from, which has got an amazing front cover this week?
Yeah, thanks to the new fanzine, best front cover ever, I think. Steve Bruce and Jurassic Park combined. One of my favourite films, one of my least favourite managers. You can head to true-faith.co.uk or at TFNUFC on Twitter. There's loads of links on there for the fanzine, and just search TFNUFC and or True Faith NUFC, and any good podcast provider will be there. And echo your thoughts. Thanks for having me, mate. It's been great to chat and speak to your listeners, and would love to return the favour. No problem.
Well, when I'm free, mate, I'll jump on and help you out. And what I do want to say, I think True Faith right now, you don't really have, obviously you've got resident writers and people that do continuously putting articles out, but I think you're pretty open to anyone at the moment, aren't you? Where if somebody's got something to say about Newcastle United, send a piece in and we'll take it from there.
Would love that. Or if you don't have an idea and you just want to write something, get in touch. We'll love new writers. We'll love, the whole point of it is providing a platform for fans to write about football, so that there's a different narrative to sometimes the one that's put out by the media. Yeah. Different voices, different ideas. That's what it's all about. That's what True Faith exists for, to give people watching this a platform to get their voice across. So yeah, cheers, mate.
No problem. Right, I just want to wrap it up. If everybody watching would do have a couple of more videos coming this week. Matty has just recorded in the last hour Beyond the Lines. He is interviewing a Everton fan just to get a rundown of what they are like, their formation, key players, things like their weaknesses. We might even try and score a goal against them. We've got extra time being recorded tomorrow night. That'll probably be out on Friday at some point. That is with Jess and Laura and a couple of Newcastle United fans alongside those. So yeah, tune into that, and we'll see you at some point over the weekend. God knows when that'll be. I might be too angry after that Everton game. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing, and don't forget to like the video. See you later.